Hello, hi everyone. The time now is 2:30. Thank you so much for all of you for being punctual. A very good afternoon. Welcome to our second edition of Venture Voices. I am Bernard Su, COO of Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute and your moderator today. For first-timers who are joining us on Venture Voices, it is an initiative from ELI, Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute. It's basically a platform for our communities of entrepreneurs to share their personal journeys and insights. And today, the topic we'll be diving in deep into what it takes to be successful entrepreneurs. And we are very fortunate today to have two successful entrepreneurs, Dong Lu, founder of Take Me, and Carl, founder of Sunstone Group, to join us. I'm sure all of you are very excited to know more about them. Before we delve into their journeys, I'll let them introduce themselves, starting with Lu first, about your profile. Hey, thanks for joining us, Lu. Thank you so much. Maybe you can share a bit about your experiences and your book with the audience today.
Okay. Yes. Thank you. Thank you for having me, Bernard, and Carl. By the way, I'm not successful yet. I'm on my way. I'm trying to figure it out. So I'm just here to share my 2 cents as an entrepreneur, work in progress. All right. So Carl can share his successful experience. I'm going to share my work in progress.
Yes, to our value, but yes.
All right. So quick bullet point about myself. So I was born in Beijing, China, and I lived in Japan. I also lived in the US. So I've been educated and worked in these three countries. That's something I can share. And also I started two companies, exited them, and I'm my third company right now. And those three companies are spread between China and Japan. So I can also share a little bit about that. Starting companies in these different countries. And yeah, and also I'm a Christian. Found my way to God, Jesus, in Beijing, actually, in the underground churches in 2007, which played a huge part in my business. So yeah, a previous work experience before I started my entrepreneurial journey was after graduation. I started at Goldman Sachs in Japan, investment banking. I also did consulting with the Monitor Group, which is no longer there anymore. But if for people who may have heard about the name, it's actually founded by the Harvard professor who wrote Competitive Advantage, the book, right, and became famous. Michael Porter, by the way. And also I did a little bit of VC with GGV Capital in China. So these are my working experience prior to being an entrepreneur, starting my companies.
Thanks so much, Lu. Very colorful. Having worked in so many different countries, presume
Yes.
Shanghai.
The areas of my companies, right? So as listed are I'm into fashion and apparel, retail. So two of them, one is called Beyond Tailors, one is called Lemieux. These are the two fashion or apparel brands I started in China. One is a online custom tailoring company targeting mostly men, and the other is a lingerie company targeting women. The tagline is China's Victoria's Secret. And my current company, Take Me, we used to call it Japan Foodie, is a restaurant tech. So we help Japan's restaurants to connect with the world tourists through reservation, through digital order, and digital payment.
Wow, that's your target audience shifted with the domicile as well. I realized that, and finally you're going for everyone who needs to eat. Thanks so much, Lou. We have a lot of questions for you later, but before that, Carl, why don't you tell us more about your experiences, and your companies that you worked on?
Good afternoon. Thank you, Bernard. Can you hear me well?
Perfect.
All right. My name is Carl. I now live in Singapore. Originally born in Taiwan and grew up in Indonesia. So I still feel a strong affinity to Indonesia. Now I live in Singapore. My wife and kids are Singaporeans, so I consider myself a privilege to be in this great country. I'm an entrepreneur. The Sunstone Group is a holding company Within the Sunstone Group, there are a number of different businesses that we own and operate. Over many, many years, starting different businesses, eventually it made sense for us to have a holding company that encompasses the whole organization. So my first business that I started was actually a consulting firm that helped companies in the United States access companies in Asia. This is before Alibaba, this is before the internet, this is fax machines. So now I think the value proposition is very different. So that's my first company. My first company was to help US companies export to Asia and for Asian companies to access the US market. So I did that for a couple of years. And then I moved into a biotech firm. I was responsible for the international trade. The biotech company was going through FDA approvals, and my responsibility was to bring that company's products around the world. I traveled many countries knocking on doors, and it's in that company that I learned how to sell. So I think two parts of being an entrepreneur is actually being able to have an ability to have a plan, have a strategy, have an idea, and that's what the consulting company gave me. And then the ability to sell, to get customers, to raise money, to sell to investors, to sell to corporates, to sell to individuals. So I did that for a couple of years, and my last corporate job was I was the CEO for a fintech company that GE Capital, and GE is not Great Eastern, GE is General Electric. So General Electric has they have insurance companies, they have a lot of capital, and they invested in a fintech company, and that's my last corporate role. I was a fintech CEO, and my responsibility was to grow that company. It's interesting because I started my business right after that when I realized, hey, look, I have a lot of interesting corporate experience, but I feel like I could run faster if I actually was not being encumbered by internal corporate politics. And that's how I started my business. And that was almost 25 years ago. Scary to think about that. But yeah. So I've been in business for about 20 plus years. And now we own and operate different kinds of business around the world. We own companies in Indonesia, to Tokyo, to Japan, to the United States. During the COVID years, I was very privileged to be able to set up a couple fintechs in the US and raise money for that. So at this moment, in this season in my life, I'm more involved in the investment and the strategy side of our companies. I don't often get too involved in the operational side anymore, but ready to roll up my sleeves at any given moment in time. I do want to make a note, just smiling because the other guest, Lou, was sharing. So actually, on a formal training site, unlike Lou, who has an MBA from Stanford, you can see from the t-shirt. Yeah. My formal training, my formal education is in theology. So yes, I have studied theology, so I'm trained as a pastor actually. And my doctorate is in leadership, and that has really helped me with one of our businesses, which is a training company. So that's a little bit about myself. I'm a Singaporean now. My wife is Singaporean. I've got two teenage kids, and I'm enjoying learning to be a father of teenage kids. It's a completely different webinar on that.
Sure. And thanks so much, Carl, for your introduction. Very fortunate to have both of you here today to share your insights, your journey. So it's quite a coincidence that both Lou and yourself, Carl, have very similar journeys. You guys born and bred, for you, Carl, Taiwan, then studied in Indonesia. Then Lou started in China, US, and then worked in Japan, China, Philippines, and Carl, you're working in US, Malaysia. And then your businesses, of all the places that you were born, you were like doing business all over. Like Lou is in China and then Japan now, and Carl, you're everywhere: US, Malaysia, Indonesia, Singapore, and so on. Wow, it's a lot it's a very diverse background. I'm sure you guys, your entrepreneurial journeys will be very colorful. A lot of lessons that you have learned along the way. And starting with you, Lou, perhaps you can share a bit about how your journey panned out and some of the key lessons you have learned along the way. Kind of share with our audience here today. Yeah, Lou.
I'm
Yeah.
muted, sorry.
Yeah, right.
So the key lessons, wow, too many. As it just happened, I think, both me and Carl, we're very international. But I would suggest, since this is an entrepreneurial sort of webinar, it's very hard. It's very difficult to start a multinational or cross-border business. I would say even the big companies like Google or like, you know what I mean, right? All the companies like Yahoo, right? Only succeeded in US and Japan, right? So what I'm trying to say is that um, I end up doing cross-border business, not because it's cool or it's cool to talk about. It's actually very practical, because these giant tech companies, I consider myself a Silicon Valley style startup entrepreneur. The key thing is, of course, to make a difference, right? But the key thing is not to be squashed by competition initially. So there's a golden rule, I heard, rule of thumb, right? 90% of the company die in the first year, right? But you survive for 3 years and 90% of the chance you don't die, right? For a long time. So the key is not to die very early. And there are a lot of ways to die, but one typical way you die is because you have a good idea, and some big companies see what you're doing, and they did exactly what you do, and they squash you, right? A typical question when I pitch to VCs, right? Nowadays, if I pitch to Chinese VC, right, they'll say, "Oh, all right, brilliant idea. Then what about if Alibaba or Baidu or Tencent, they hear your ideas, and what do they do about it, right?" In the US, they'll say Google and the like, right? So I think the reason I'm doing what I'm doing right now is because it's very hard, right? I'm doing cross-border between Japan and China. It's very hard for any Chinese companies to copy what I do. And on the other hand, it's very hard for any Japanese tech giants to also do what I do. So I'm basically living in the space between the giants, right? And I have a competitive vacuum, I would say, right? So that I can do my strength is in their weakness, so that and my product serves a niche, so that I can not only survive but also for a couple of years, but that can I can grow into a certain size with high growth because the market is large enough, right? So that's also a key, right? So large enough market, but in a competitive vacuum. That's like the best place to be, right? You can be a small fish in a big pond, right? But it happened to be this pound is hard for any other guys to get in. So you're the only fish in here for a while until someone get in. And when the people get in, you're already pretty big. I think that's sort of the key to success.
Very invaluable. So what I'm getting at is fish in a large pond. Make sure nobody knows where the pond is, and then you are the exclusive fisherman. Try not to die in year one, last only 3 years, and then you survive. So wow, it's you use cross-border. In fact, it's a challenge for many people, but you use it to play to your strength. I think that's something that's something to learn about as well. And you chose a good market, a good pond to fish in, and it's good. Wow, Carl, how about yourself? Your journey.
I want to reflect on what Lou has mentioned. I think Singapore is a very interesting area because what inspired, I mean, he's looking at the market niche, and I say, what inspired him or what inspires me is what I call a knowledge arbitrage or an opportunity arbitrage. So what I'm trying to say is, okay, Singaporeans like to travel. You go travel to another country, you say, wait a minute, that restaurant is good. Why don't we have it in Singapore? That should be that inspiration, right? And that's the gap. Now the question is, how fast can you implement that, and can you actually successfully replicate that, or otherwise you know look for a franchising opportunity if it's a restaurant. So I think it's a knowledge arbitrage or information arbitrage or an opportunity arbitrage. So that's really what happened, right? I started my healthcare company in Malaysia because I was in the US and I was living there, and I think, wait a minute, this is a great service. How come they don't offer this in my country or in other countries in Asia? And so it usually is a very innocent inspiration like that. And then, as I think all other entrepreneurs will realize, that there's like 20 tons of things that you got to figure out just to get above the hump and survive, right? How long can you survive without paying yourself a salary? How long can you survive? How do you explain to your wife if you're married, look, we're gonna suffer for a while because then you got an MBA. He goes, why do you get a job with a multinational? So I think those are risk appetites. But I agree, it's an arbitrage, and then you have to think, do I have the discipline, the resilience, and the adaptability to make through that? That's like the three things I tend to look at for myself and look at other entrepreneurs, because now we're investors. Do they have the discipline? Do they have the resilience? Because it's a guarantee entrepreneurs will fail. It's a guarantee. There's no such thing as, I have never heard of an entrepreneur that's, even in the first business, that they haven't suffered a lot of failures and a lot of learnings. But when you fail and learn, can you actually bounce back up, and can you adapt, and can you adjust? So I think that's really entrepreneurship for me. It's a learning journey, and it gets very lonely. Sometimes gets very scary, but I think as an entrepreneur, you'd also have to have an attitude of optimism. You're always thinking, yes, it can be done, right? Without that, there's oftentimes not a lot of cheerleaders around you. Usually, actually, there are a lot of naysayers.
Thanks so much, Carl. Wow, insightful. I was expecting, so we like arbitrage, right? So I like what you say about knowledge and market arbitrage. That's what Lou did, right? And of course, obviously, before everyone realized there's a arbitrage opportunity, the speed to market, how fast to replicate it and go out. So these are opportunities, and I hear from you, Carl. Essentially discipline, resilience, optimism. It's important. So I'm sure there's a lot of you guys have been in as an entrepreneur for like many decades, right? So there's probably a lot of like experiences accumulated and reflected, on hindsight, amongst all the lessons that you guys have learned, Lou, Carl, in Lou especially, you're in fintech, e-commerce, online tailoring. Carl is in fintech, edtech, digital bank, medtech, and F&B, everything. So all this coming together, what do you think is the most crucial skill sets an entrepreneur should develop for long-term success? Starting with Lou first.
Okay, thank you. I kind of want to follow up with a previous question. So I talk a lot about the brain, right? That market, blah blah blah. But I also like to stretch about the heart part. So we need so first of all, I think we're talking about entrepreneurship, but first of all, I would say fundamentally, not everyone is suitable to be an entrepreneur, right? An entrepreneur is extremely hard. It's very risky, and it requires a lot of skills and require a lot of mental strength and a lot of heart, right? So it's not for everyone. First of all, and also it's actually okay not to be an entrepreneur. I think being an entrepreneur, not to be an entrepreneur, is not the key. I think the key for me is about the calling. I feel, for me, the reason I become an entrepreneur is I remember sometime in between junior high school or high school, I just had this calling. I just had this feeling that I'm not gonna be an salaryman for my life. I don't know why. I don't know the reason. I don't know where it's from my parents or from my by the way, my parents are a government worker. My grandparents, they're academic, they're professor in university. Somehow I just feel like I'm not gonna be like them. I feel like I'm gonna do something for myself. This is a unexplainable thing until you have the same feeling. You know what I mean? You have the same experience. And then, although with that calling, even though I joined, these many, companies. Some companies are, very prestigious, like people dream to go. But I know exactly I'm not there. I know exactly. I got in Goldman. I know, okay, this is my boot camp. I'm only going to be here for a couple of years. So even during the conversation, my entire with my peers, I feel the difference myself is that my mentality is like, this is like just another graduate school. I just need to learn what I need to learn in Goldman, and then I'm going to move on. So my purpose is very, very clear. So I would say it's not a skill. It's actually a quality, or it's a heart, or it's a spirit. Basically, I think that is the most important thing. If you have the calling, the skill is secondary. You can acquire all the skills you need to achieve your calling, right? But you have to have your calling first. If you don't have your calling, no matter how many skills you acquire, you're not going to do it, right? So the conviction, the strong belief, the what do you call the passion, you name it. There are a lot of words to describe, but I think at the end of the day, only you know. At the end of the night, by yourself, you know exactly what you're made for. I think that's the most important thing, and all other things are secondary, right? Do you agree with me, Carl?
Calling and spirits, I'm sure.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's the heart before the head and the hands.
Yeah, that's
The
right.
heart. So, I mean, what skills do you need to have? Unfortunately, everything from the ability to make a strategy, and you'll make mistakes, to planning, to execution. You need to learn HR. If you don't know accounting, you better go online and figure out what is the bare minimum accounting you know, and because you could be very profitable but go bankrupt because you have no cash flow. So you have to have accounting skills, marketing skills. You have to learn everything, unless you were born into a billionaire family and you can hire a whole bunch of experts, which I don't think will still be able to do what you're supposed to do as an entrepreneur. You have to learn everything. Now, here's the problem. Once you learn everything and you've got the heart, most entrepreneurs fall into the trap of not being able to scale because they become an expert to everything and they want to be good at everything, and usually they become really good and they hire people, but they end up doing everything. So I have to guard myself against that too. And once you build some kind of organizational and business rhythm, then you need to hire good people and allow them to run the business, and you add value where you see fit. So you have to constantly reinvent yourself as an entrepreneur, even within your own business, so that you know where you can add the most value. But when you first start out, you're the chief financial officer, you're chief marketing officer, you clean the bathroom. Literally, that's what I've done, and I'm sure that's what Lou has done. But you can learn the skills fast if you're hungry enough and if you've got the passion. In my opinion, in this day and age, I would have to say, you want to do something that is of value, that people will pay for. And hopefully of value means something good for everyone.
Thanks, Carl. Very insightful. And Lou, I totally agree with you. The hard part, I just came out of to be an entrepreneur not less than 3 years ago, coming 3 years. So survived, but without the hard part, it's very it can be very challenging. Like what Carl say, I have to know everything. I was invoicing, I was doing the sales, and the product manager, everything. It's you have to do it in a startup environment, and without that hunger, the calling, it will be very easy to give up. So I thank God for that, and I hope this will inspire, not dissuade people from being entrepreneurs, but inspire them. If there is that calling there, when they feel that there is a calling to be entrepreneur, the rest will follow. Like what Carl say, but there is a level of complacency for some entrepreneurs. So we need to reinvent to scale up. Otherwise, you'll be stagnated for a while. So thanks so much. I think I learned a lot. Thank you.
I think there's a test. I would say there's a test. There's a good practice that I've heard from an entrepreneur, and I did it myself. I think the practice is every morning you wake up, you go to the mirror and look at yourself, and in 10 seconds, if you can say why I'm doing what I'm doing, and answer it in 10 seconds. Of course, in the beginning, you cannot do it, right? But after a couple times, maybe 10 or 15 times, then you can say that smoothly, look into yourself in your own eyes and say that why I'm doing what I'm doing today. I'm gonna go out the door and kick some asses and do all this. Why I'm doing this, what I'm doing. In 10 seconds, you can say that clearly and consistently, and the rest of it is just tell the whole world. Tell your investors, tell your employees, tell your everyone, tell your customers, and then that's it. That's what I call conviction. Your mission, your purpose of life, and you're fully convinced. You're totally convinced. You're convicted. This is what I'm made to do, no matter what. Right. So that's what I see a good practice to reach.
Thanks. It's a good tip. I think I'll try that tomorrow morning. It's glad that I see, after 10, 20 years of being an entrepreneur, you still have that fire, Lou, when you just mentioned the whole thing, look yourself in the mirror. I can feel the fire coming up. I can see that on Carl every day, every moment.
Too much fire.
Too much.
Maybe.
So we heard enough about successes, journey. I'm sure there's a lot of failures, it's 10, 20 years of journey. We probably guys like to discuss a specific failure or even challenge that you face, and what strategies you use to overcome it, along the way. So just a specific failure or challenge, Carl, how about you?
Maybe
Yeah.
I'll start. I think, first of all, I think we tend to have an express learning when we fail big. Hopefully you'll learn, because, if you fail and when you fail, not if, when you fail and you fail big, you learn something very, very fast. So I remember driving my car to the car dealership, used car dealership, to literally in Malaysia to sell my car and take the money they give for my car. And I didn't even want to waste a cent because I couldn't make payroll. I couldn't make payroll in my company. So the only way I can think, I had no asset, I don't have a Rolex watch. So I drove my car to the used car dealership. They offered me a price. I took the cash and I walked back to the office about half an hour, and then I make payroll. And then basically in that 4-hour period, I became an expert in cash flow, balance sheet, and income statement. There's no MBA program could have trained me for that, right? So that's a failure because I was profitable, but I didn't have enough cash flow. And that connectivity, I mean, if you go and learn accounting, yes, you'll learn this. And I learned this in accounting. But when you learn something to get a B, or a C in accounting as a grade, that's academic. But when you actually physically have to take your car and sell the only asset that you had, so that's an example of instant learning, right? Now I'm an expert. Now I hire many accountants. They give me the financial spreadsheet, and literally within 25 seconds to 30 seconds, I can see their mistakes because I had to go through that boot camp of life of failing. So thank God that business right now today is doing very well. I'm very grateful, and God's been giving me favor for that. But my point is that was a failure, and you learn.
Oh, good point, Carl. In fact, in banking last time, private banking, we see a lot of clients, rich clients, some billionaire and great businesses, but the cash flow can't turn around, and overnight they just went bankrupt. And most of them are good product guys. They invented something, or they are good salesmen, but they ignore finance. And of course the bankers weren't doing their job. So take it on your own hand as an entrepreneur. We have to, otherwise, you'll be taken for a ride. Good advice, hire your own accounting team, so that you have more control. Lou, what do you think, man, about
Yes.
failures?
Yeah, I like to share more failure. Can I share 3 failure experiences?
Be my guest.
Yeah, because I really don't want people fail the way I fail. I really want to share my failure experience. I'll share 3 quick ones. The first one is technical failure. So is this company in China, Lemieux? It's a lingerie company. The failure, the company actually, the stats, it was like 3 years, we raised $30 million money. We had 3 million customers. We, were the first and biggest, blah, blah, blah. All this glamorous part was fine. But to a certain point, we couldn't grow as much. And eventually after 6 years, I sold the company. So why I couldn't become the Victoria's Secret of China, or I can make the company much, much bigger than what it was. it was that I realized my strength. So I talk about passion, right? I talk about calling. But there's one thing in terms of starting a company that we have to face is that we cannot do this by ourselves, right? We have to have a team. So the key for the team is like pieces of puzzles. The team composition, especially at the executive level, has to have all the core competencies that requires for the business to be successful, right? So the failure was that so the competency, the key to make a apparel brand successful is branding, marketing, right? You have to sell it, right? But before you sell it, you have to make the product, right? Make the product and selling the product. So in terms of designing, yeah, I had the passion to hire a lot of designers, but we lack of a key supply chain management person. This is very specific, right? So I could ramp up on the marketing side, 10x growth on the traffic side, on the customer acquisition side. But our backend supply chain, we couldn't do 10x growth in terms of supply, making the good product, even when we're growing at a 10x per year. So that's why I learned why Tim Cook could become the CEO. He was initially the COO of Apple. Without Tim Cook, they cannot, no matter how wonderful your idea is, you cannot just make millions and billions of product consistently with high quality. Tim Cook did it. So we lack someone like Tim Cook. So I try to learn it, but this is a lesson really, really hard to learn. It takes years, right? So if we had someone who is really, really good at supply chain management, who could keep up our front-end growth and supply and keep all the operations in together, then we could have made it. But again, it's really hard to hire someone when you don't even know, you don't have the expertise. It's like you don't know how to program. How do you hire a programmer? You don't even have a judgment of whether this person you're interviewing is good or not, right? So this is like I would say a typical I would say failure. I want all the entrepreneur to learn. So when you try to do business, you cannot do everything. Like even as like Carl said, but I believe Carl cannot do everything. You need partners, you need key management. But once you find this key management, you have to have the initial core pieces of puzzle that at least with this initial 3 or 4 people, you can actually do this business. If you cannot do it, then it's really hard to make it up in the long run. So that's a technical failure, I would say. The second failure was when the business becomes successful, when it grows really fast. My strength, I as a CEO spend more time with investors, fundraising, preparing for IPO. So then I spend less time with the customer and product. This is a really, really hard lesson I want to share, that a company only exists because we make good product and services for our customers. That's the only reason we exist, right? And once the CEO, the strategy of the CEO is not the PPT or is not something slogan on the wall. The strategy of the CEO is where the CEO spend his time. If the CEO spend all his time in the customer and product, a company will be successful. If the CEO spend more time, most of his time, or maybe half of my time in the year, I was with the investors. So I think that was something I would have done differently, right? Always spend focus on the customer, focus on the product. And the third failure, I would say, it's more fundamental one. It's a failure of my definition of success. So I mentioned a lot of success, and I don't know about your definition of success, but my definition of success was start a company in 3 years, raise a bunch of money, go IPO in the shortest time as possible, right? So that's what I identify myself, like a Silicon Valley tech startup, right? When you hear these stories, these are the typical definition of success. But I would say that's wrong to me. I just realized because not every company needs to go IPO. And in fact, a lot of good companies, they're public, they're private, they don't go IPO. A lot of companies don't raise fund. So the key is not to go IPO. It's not a growth. It's not about scale. It's not about how much money you're making. I think the key, so now my definition of success, I think the wrong definition I had to explain is basically in order to, if that's the definition, then all I do is to hire people, find money to achieve my goal, right? So I'm using people, I'm using money to achieve my goal of success. And I see that as a wrong approach. But I think the right approach is to use the talent that God gave me to serve people. To serve people, meaning the customers, my employees, the investors, so that they can be their best. And the result will be the growth. The result will be better product, more people buy it. The result will be more revenue and more profit. And all these are results. But the starting point is not my success, it's their success. All right. So I think if I got it wrong, so that's why I face a lot of crisis. But I think if I got it right now, it may take me a longer time. May take me and we may not go IPO. Just per se, right? We don't have to go IPO, but the key is, I'm sure we have a great team that we love each other, we help each other, and we have a great product. Then all our customers love us, right? And yeah, and if you're good job as business people, we're gonna have a great revenue and profit. But all these are results of the heart. What's the purpose of life? My purpose of life is not for me. My personal, I become rich. No, that's a wrong approach. I think that's the biggest failure. Is to get rich quick. Okay, I'm done. That's the three things, Elder.
It's very real. Carl,
In Japan, there's an old saying called Hito, Mono, Kane, and it's in that order.
Yes.
Hito is people first.
yes.
Hito first. It's all about people. You, the people you serve, the people that work with you, you have to get that right. And then mono is the product, the service. And then kane is money, which is the output. If we reverse that, and by the way, what Lou has just shared, we can say this over and over, but you have to walk through the experience. It's exactly, Lou, the same ways that and this is a webinar. Hopefully will give you some inspiration and reference point, but most people will have to learn the hard way because I've read those books, but when you're in the business and you're looking at
yes.
from surviving to making money, you're thinking, okay, can I make more? It's very easy to get distracted.
Exactly. I seen a lot of business owners, they have problems retaining talents, and the complaints to me is like, oh no, I can't retain my people. They want to leave or somewhere else. I guess it could be the case whereby they were using people to make money, and then there's no loyalty to stick with the company when the company grew. So it's a valid point. I think the definition of success that I think business owner should use people to grow them first, and then the product, and then the customer. So what I'm hearing is also Lou, in terms of time management, when you were CEO, you were spending more time with the investors and less on the consumer. And this is real. It's not easy as an entrepreneur. It's not easy. We have so many balls to juggle, and so many stakeholders. And of course, the board and the investors are always breathing down our necks directly. Customers are 2 calls away, before it reaches the CEO. So, yeah, I think it's very valid. When the company only makes money when the consumers are happy, not so much when the investors are happy. It's a good point. But talking about time management, I'd like to talk about. I want to drive in deep, to Carl specifically. You have so many businesses, fintech, edtech, digital bank, medtech, and training, and you're a pastor, and different time zone. I don't know how you manage your time effectively, juggling so many roles across different world. Maybe you can share with the audience here, how do you actually juggle your time?
Eat vitamins. Eat vitamins. No, I've been given some gifts. One of the gifts I've been given, apart from a beautiful wife and wonderful kids, my gift is actually the ability to sleep well. Because I'm mentally and physically exhausted, I sleep well, I get a good rest. But I think the most important thing is energy and intensity. I think the people who work with me and who collaborate with me, now the problem is I need to know when to switch it off. When I'm home or when Chinese New Year with my in-laws, with my parents, I need to kind of switch that off and just, But energy, if you cannot drive yourself and have that passion, of course, and that energy and intensity, it's very difficult to manage your time. And when you have energy and intensity, then next step is to get a little bit more efficient, right? And Lou mentioned it's about then investing in the right people. But investing in the right people is not just hiring people, it's investing your time, building relationships. I don't think there's any substitute to building relationships internally with your colleagues, with your family, as well as with the customers. So we are very intentional in that. In fact, our company, our group company values is GREAT, right? And that's what we try to implement internally and with our clients. G stands for growth mindset. You need to have a growth mindset instead of a fixed mindset, and that's a choice. R stands for relationship. Build relationships, first with God, with your family, with your colleagues, with your clients, with your customers. E is excellence, and that should be defined by the collective group of the people you're leading. A is adaptability. If you fall down, stand up, but don't repeat the same mistake, right? And you will fall. And T is trustworthiness. At the end of the day, what do we have in this world? Our word. Contracts, agreements, it is what it is. It's our word. We do what we say, and we honor what we say, and we try to honor as many people as possible. So, yeah, having good moral and ethical standards. But coming back to the time management is about really being able to have the energy and the intensity. Once you have those two things in, you tend to be a little bit more efficient. Sometimes a little bit too efficient that you don't get effective. So the good news is I recommend anybody who wants to become an entrepreneur, find one or two or perhaps even three mentors that provides a little bit of a sounding board. The investment is a cup of coffee at Starbucks or a quick sandwich, and just bounce ideas and get the right people with the same values around you and have those mentors. It's invaluable. I've had mentors, and I don't know any successful entrepreneur who hasn't had mentors. So that's something to think about from a calibration point of view.
Wow, thanks, Carl. Yeah, I guess I'm very fortunate blessed to have a mentor like yourself, driving me with your energy and intensity. So it's good. I learned a lot from you, and I'm still learning. All these things of how to manage time and everything else. So thankfully, I'm sure a lot of audience here will benefit from that. It's about it's even about making time for your employees, like what Lou and Carl has said. To make more time, you have to really spend more time with them so that they can rise up and help you, reduce your workload. So it's quite weird thinking, but yeah, you have to get it. Make time to make more time. All right. So, well, thanks so much. I've got another questions. There's a lot of rumors, or not naysayers saying, when I started to do business, like what Lou says, like, oh no, 90% will fail. So you get that a lot, and it's true. Doing business can be risky. There's a lot of decisions to make running a business. Lou, in terms of balancing the risk taking and the caution in your business decision, how do you do that? How do you balance? You're on mute, Lou. Lou, you're on mute.
Okay.
Yeah, cool.
Balance on risk taking. Well, again, it's about definition, I think, right? We have different definition where people call it risk appetite, right? So a lot of time, right? To me, it's a risk, right? Even within our team, right? To me, it's a risk, but to maybe my COO, it's not a risk, or maybe vice versa. Yeah, but I think typically for an entrepreneur, in order to do anything, you have to take risk. So I think a good gauge is that if you feel that you're not taking enough risk, for sure you're not taking enough risk. Because when you take risk, when you're taking a risk, you surely know. Your gut will know.
Yeah.
When you're not eating, when you're not sleeping, when you're doing all this, you're taking risk. which is good. I think most people. I heard there's a survey. Most people when they about to die, they ask what you regret for. Most people say three things, right? They regret that they're not taking enough risks in their lives, and they regret spending too much at work, right? It's so I as I'm biased, but I think what can you lose,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
So
Yeah, what's there to
I
lose,
would
right?
say just
Agree.
take a lot of risk.
Mhm.
Try to be bold, try to think out of the box,
Mhm.
try to do things people never done before, because to be honest, there are only two ways to be successful, right? There are only two ways to be successful. Very simple. The one way is you're doing something, you're the only one doing this thing, and nobody else is doing it, right? You're the only one, right? The strategy number one is only one.
Yes,
Strategy
cut
number
upon.
two, is you're the best. Strategy number two is like, there's a lot of people doing it, but you're the best in doing it, right? Which strategy is easier to pull off? Clearly, number one,
Mhm.
because it's very hard to be the best. There are a lot of smart people out there. So
From Sanford, right?
when there are a lot of people out there, that means it's not a lot of risk, because it's a proven method, right? A lot of people want to go into investment banking. A lot of people want to go to business school. All right, it's a proven path. I'll make a lot of money. Blah blah blah. Right. So, but you have to beat the other. You have to be on top of others. Right. That's hard.
It's true.
Right. You have to be smart. You have to do a lot of work. But to do something that nobody does, of course, you can define it, right?
Yeah.
To do food tech in Japan back in 2014.
Mhm.
A lot of people do that in China, but nobody does it in Japan, right? Nobody does it cross-border, right? So you can define your own game, so that you're only player in your own game, right?
Sure.
That's actually, to me, a much easier path to success. I would say the only strategy to be successful. Once you execute that strategy, and you find some others are trying to get in the same game that you're playing, that's a good sign, because that means you invented a good game.
Yeah,
so that other people want to join your game and play with you, right? And then what you do is, like, you keep beating them because you start early, right? And you keep being the best in the game. But there are more and more people coming in. Some people are going to be better than you. Then the next step is, like, you have to start inventing another game again, so that you're the only one doing that, right? So I think that's how entrepreneur, how innovative company works, right? You have to always take risk to do something nobody does.
Exactly.
That's the only way to survive, I think.
Wow, thanks so much. Carl, you're an investor. You invested in a lot of businesses. I'm sure you have some views on this.
Well, I mean, I remember very fondly, almost exactly 10 years ago, my Indonesian CEO who left his nice paying regional corporate banking job, and he became my equity partner. And he goes, Carl, what if it doesn't work out? Well, at least you know what? I'll prepare my resume so I can apply for a job. And I said, dude, then you shouldn't even start, because you're thinking about what if it fails. So if you're going to start a business, you should not ask this question, what if it fails? You should ask this question, how successful will I be, and by when? So I think if you have a safety, a lot of people have a safety net. They have good money, and they've already got enough of savings account and all that. And so sometimes I feel those kind of people may have this false sense of security, rather than saying, okay, I'm all in, I'm going to make it work, I'm going to learn along the way, I'm going to look for some mentors, I'm going to upskill myself, I'm going to give this the energy that it wants, and then if and when I fail, these mini failures, I'm going to learn and adapt. And having that, okay, failure is not an option attitude, I think that kind of intensity will help. Now, of course, it's a different season in life. I've got a wife and 2 kids. I have to have some responsibility to the family, so I have to make sure that is secure. But Yeah, risk management for, I think, for Lou and myself, it's probably not a good topic because we would take all the risk to make it happen. Yeah, yeah. So we would go super aggressive and say, all right, well, we'll do it. I think one of the calibrations that I have is I tend to ask these questions. What can I control truly versus what can I influence versus what I can't control? And then weigh it out. What can I control? My own time, the way I handle my own money, my ability to learn and put a PowerPoint and Excel sheet together. What can I influence? These are my team members, my colleagues, maybe the marketplace. I can influence investors, and then I can even influence my P&L, my expense. Do I hire 5 people or 15 people? I can control and influence that. And the last thing is what I can't control. I can't control revenues. I can't control if a client buys or not. So sometimes I look at these kinds of risk management from those questions and try to say, all right, how comfortable am I to get into that venture? Now, this is to start a company. Now, as a venture capitalist, which I am, then we look at a typical VC criteria, right? Is there a business model that's scalable? Are they lacking capital, but with the right capital, they can grow tremendously? So there are a lot of other questions that a venture capital will look at. So as a startup, you've got seed investors, and then you've got strategic investors, and hopefully venture capital. It doesn't always have to go that way, right? But generally speaking, there are different levels of risk and return. But for a startup, as an entrepreneur, I usually look at what can I control, what can I influence, and what I can't influence, and how do I manage that? And those are kind of like my risk appetite, internal compasses.
Well, thanks so much, Carl. Yeah, I agree what you said. Having the all-in attitude. At least the attitude have to be, mentally, body and soul, as we all in. It need not be all the finances, all the money cash in, but I think that attitude is important. Evaluating what we can control and having a sense whether that's okay with you. I think that's a good advice. Okay, time flies. We're gonna move into FAQ right now. I'm sure a lot of audience have many questions for you guys. So for the audience, finally, you can start shooting questions. We have a Mentimeter here. I will be able to receive your questions. So just use your phone, scan this QR code over here, and input your questions. And we will bring it to the speakers today. But during registration, we have actually a few questions consolidated as well. I'm gonna voice some of the questions out here. There's a question from Jason Chu. I think he's here. I saw him just now. It's for both speakers, so Lou and Carl. Please feel free. Question is, at what stage of your entrepreneurship journey do you think about developing your team and building a team culture? And how do you go about developing both your team and yourself as a leader? So we're talking about at which stage of the journey do you think that it's important to start building team culture, and then how do you go about developing the team and yourself as a leader? Lou, Carl, anybody?
I'll just quickly say, from the beginning, the team culture is basically you and yourself, and then the next person you hire could be your wife or your brother, which is my brother, and then. So the question is actually, how intentional should we be? I think you should be very intentional. Have a set of written values, and with ChatGPT, you can actually put it in there and it'll give you a bunch of behaviors, and hold yourself to that kind of gold standard. And I will be the first to say that I messed up many times, but at least I've got some values, right? So in terms of developing the team, that's day one. Develop yourself, develop your team. I would actually, the 3 things I would write down right away is the why, which is what Lou said, the mission statement. Why am I doing this? What's the why, right? The vision statement, which is what do I want to be when I grow up? How's the business going to look 3 to 5 years? And then lastly, values. Mission, vision, values. That should be written down. I used to have it laminated. Now I have got it on my mobile phone. It's on our website. And of course, over time, your vision statement can change and your values can change because the different dynamics. But it should be a very conscious decision, because people typically, and this is global poll, people leave their bosses and leave the work environment for other. Usually money is important, but it's number three. People leave because they don't get the right opportunities, or they don't have the right boss, or they don't like their work culture. Money is a consideration, but it's not the only consideration. And more young people these days join companies because of work culture. So if you want to attract good talent, you really have to start from day one. That's my personal thinking. Of course, I'm much older and I've made all the mistakes in the last 25, 30 years. So I can speak with that experience.
Lou, any things to add on to Carl's?
Totally echo.
Thanks, Carl.
Carl, I would say day -1. That's when you're, so Peter Drucker said, other than vision, mission, and value, anything in the company can be outsourced.
Yes.
So basically, you only hire your people, you attract great talents only with your vision, mission, and value.
Wow.
Not by your salary, not by stock option, not by position, not at all. I would say nowadays we're competing with the startups equally growing fast, equaling 3-year out to IPO, equally everything is equal. The only difference between you and others is your vision, mission, and value. That's it.
It's true. It's true. Mostly all the products are
before you hire the first
somewhat
one,
similar, right?
Yeah, before you hire the first employee or co-founder, the reason they work with you is because it's three things, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. Thanks so much, Lou. Put some context today, working for Uber versus Grab, feels like the same, but but yeah, exactly. Thanks so much. We have a question from Eunice. I think she's a budding entrepreneur, aspiring one. Question is very simple. How do I even get started? Any advice, experts?
Yes.
Yeah.
My advice is, I heard people say like, hey, I'm gonna start my company next March. I was curious why that. So I think being after doing 3 startups, also observing many entrepreneurs like me, I just feel like even we say entrepreneur is very hard, but actually is doable. It's not easy. Just like piano, just like swimming. It's entrepreneurship is just like any sports or any music instruments. You cannot be good at it by watching YouTube or going to a concert. You have to do it. Right? So the only way to be good at it, and also you're not going to be good at it at the first time, right? You're going to keep doing it. Of course, it takes, if you have talent, you can learn piano shorter. If you don't have talent, you can learn piano longer. But anyone can learn piano. Or I would say 90% of people in the world can learn piano. 90% of people in the world can learn entrepreneurship. That's for sure. So the only way to be good at it is to start doing it. There's no other way. Yeah.
So
Cool.
I mean, this is actually the reason why I started Entrepreneur Leadership Institute. When people are interested and they want to get excited about it, it's like learning piano, like Lou said, or learning basketball or volleyball. You just gotta learn to do it. Now, do you get good instructions and do you understand the whole journey? So actually, we've designed the Entrepreneur Leadership Institute, and we're hopefully prayerfully launching the next 3 months what I call an accelerator or a venture studio, basically a 10 to 12 week journey where people can start with week 1, says, okay, what's my mission, vision, values? Let's write it down. Let's have a cohort to go through that journey together. Maybe second week, okay, what is the product? What's the MVP, minimum viable product? Week 3 is what kind of financing we need. Week 4, I just walk through it together. There's a lot of YouTube clips. There's a lot of Googling that you can do. There's a lot of books on it. But I think it's not about head knowledge. It's not about understanding. It's about application. And it's a little bit scary to apply. You can't learn to swim by watching other people swim. You can only swim by jumping into the swimming pool. And nobody learns to swim without drinking swimming pool water. It's an impossibility, right? So you want to have a bunch of people beside you to go through that. So we're hoping that the Entrepreneurial Leadership Institute, Bernard, which you're a CEO of,
Yep.
will provide that platform where entrepreneurs will be excited to see other entrepreneurs and journey together. But there is a framework, there's a competency, but it's not about head knowledge or reading a book. And very few people read a book and then apply successfully. There's a lot of books on how to be a millionaire, Most people that read that book don't be a millionaire. The only person that becomes a millionaire is the guy who wrote the book and sold it to you.
That's why Lou is on the way there, your book. All right, but yeah, thanks so much, Carl and Lou. It's really doing it and keep doing it, regardless of the number of times you have to try. There's a question from the audience here. It's about innovation. What is your opinion on the idea of innovation? How do you sustain coming up with new ideas consistently? Any takers, Lou?
I think the key is to ask questions. It's habit of asking questions. Nowadays with the GPT, research capability becomes secondary. Any answer can be answered, right? Any question can be answered. So the problem is, how can you ask a good question, right? Because so I think having a question mark in your mind when you see the world, why is this? Why we can do this in a better way, right? So identify pain points, I think it's a typical starting point of how to create value, right? But you have to have question in your mind, always seeing the world, with the question. I think that's how I typically identified the opportunities or innovation. I think innovation opportunities are very similar. Yeah. Like
Thanks.
payment. Why do people have to pay? Why payment doesn't disappear? Right? Oh, stupid question like that. Like my grandpa always say, there's no stupid answer question, only stupid answers, right? But now with GPT, there's no stupidest answers anymore, right?
That's true. Having an inquisitive mind. How about you, Carl?
I think basically, somebody talked about curiosity. I mean, curiosity is a character. It's not something you can train, right? I just want to say, for example, what Lou said, I would just kind of add on to it. Why are people still buying my product? Would they pay more? Why are they buying my competitor's product? What can I do so they pay more? What can I add to my product so they actually can drive a bigger value proposition, right? A plastic bag is something that holds stuff that's 1 cent or even 10 cents. A Louis Vuitton bag also is waterproof. That's $10,000. Where's the value proposition, right? So the question of asking questions, the ability to ask questions, be naturally curious, drives innovation, right? But not all inventions are innovations. Innovations, by definition, for me, is something with a value proposition. An invention, okay, may not have value proposition. So just be a bit careful about those two things, right? And one of the things I do typically is something called DDIA: delete, decrease, increase, and add. It's very easy to add to your cost structure, but I try to follow a disciplined way of doing delete first. What can I delete? What can I decrease before I increase and add? And that is a very healthy framework for my own team members, the companies that we own and operate, to look at when they want to innovate. Don't tell me what you're going to add, because it usually adds more cost unless you can charge more. Tell me what you're going to delete first before you add. By the way, Starbucks deleted, waiters. They invented the whole idea of going up and ordering your food and waiting for it in the corner, right? So that's a delete. By deleting the waiters to wait on your tables, what do they add? They add coffee selection and price, right? So then now, instead of paying $1 for coffee, you're standing there waiting for your name to be called and getting charged $8. But the good news is they also added Wi-Fi, so they're surfing the internet. So there you go. So the value proposition is not coffee. The value proposition is a third location. If you guys read Howard Schultz's book. So innovation is exciting, necessary, and a differentiator.
Cool. That's a good point, Lou. Carl. It's about asking the right question, being curious, asking the right questions. Sometimes even down to streamlining existing products, deleting, streamline it, increase margin, and see how we can add on. There's other questions about.
I'd say don't worry
cool.
about asking the right questions. Get rid of the right. Just keep asking questions.
Keep asking questions.
Keep asking
Cool.
stupid questions. It's fine.
ChatGPT.
I know we're over time, but I think this is so important. I want to share this.
Cool.
It's actually by a Stanford professor. It's like the key is not to generate good ideas. If you want to sit in front of your desk and say, I'm going to generate one good idea, you're going to face a wall, right? But if you tell yourself, I'm going to sit in front of my desk and generate 10 mediocre ideas, you become much doable, right? And in general, this is research like Netflix or all the the big companies, right? How many ideas they can filter through an iteration to become actually a good product. The average number is actually 2,000. So actually you needed 2,000 ideas, average ideas, so that you can have one good idea, right? So the key is like it's actually a numbers game. Once you stop having have to have a good idea mentality, you just keep writing down. You can give yourself a task of writing down 200 dumb ideas today. Then it's much doable, and that should the right way to lead to innovation.
Cool. Thanks, Luke, for this quote. We're running a bit tight on time. I only have time for one last question. It's actually on mentorship. There's a question on how do you find the right mentor, and does the mentor have to be in the related business idea of sorts?
I have some strong opinions about mentors. First of all, it should be somebody that is going to be able to have a relationship with you, right? And be able to invest the time. And unfortunately, in the world of TikTok, in the world of YouTube, and in social media, and K-dramas, and family and work, time is a luxury. But find a mentor who's willing to commit a time. In my personal opinion, they don't have to have the same industry experience. They don't even have to have the same job function, or they don't even have to be an entrepreneur. Yes, it's great if they have that ability, but a mentor is somebody that you trust that's going to invest the time and serve as a backboard so you can bounce ideas. What do you think about this? And have them, sometimes they ask some naive questions that will provoke your thinking, right? So that's the first thing. Have somebody who can commit to a relationship and get somebody who actually can spend the time. And again, when I say time, I'm not talking about 6 hours, but have a cup of coffee once every 2 weeks. You can invest in that coffee bean, cheesecake, and just spend that time and be prepared. Use good time. Second, yes, if you have somebody who's journeyed in the path that you're looking at, that's fantastic. Mentors generally, by definition, are people who are a couple of years older than you. It doesn't have to be, but I would say somebody who's actually got some gray hair is good. A guy or gal, okay, and a gal probably colored her hair. So somebody who's actually journeyed in life and has dealt with a lot of ups and downs in life. Those are wonderful mentors, right? And not everybody who's commercially successful. Yeah, some people who are billionaires can be a mentor, but most billionaires are going to be focusing on their golf game. All right, instead of mentoring you, right? And hopefully they will have time to give back to the community. But yeah, find somebody who's actually gone through life and have a couple of years ahead. Right? It's the same thing, by the way. Is when my kids were small and young, and I was talking to a lot of parents who had teenage kids, because then when my kids are teenagers, I remember I spoke to these people about teenage kids, and this is what they should allow them to do, and this and that. So somebody who's got a little bit of they don't have to be commercially successful, and sometimes people who are not commercially successful add as much value because you know what, this is where I messed up, and but they will share that with you if you're not in a relationship, if there's not a safe environment. That's my 2 cents on mentors.
Cool. Thanks so much, Carl. Lou, will you have anything to add about the mentors you met, so far?
Everything I agree. I just want to add on, and also I saw Sujuta wrote on the comment said commitment to relationship, right? I just want to give you a technique of finding mentors, because I heard about this technique online, and then I've been practicing this technique. It's working, and also I see other people practicing this against me to be a mentor. So the technique is you don't call them mentor. You don't say, "Hey, can you become my mentor?" You don't say that. because nobody wants to commit to a relationship, right? They're all busy, like Carl said. The secret is you don't ask. You just say, you don't say, hey, can I have an hour with you? You don't say that. You say, can I have 10 minutes with you? And you do this to a couple of guys, 2-3 guys, right, to begin with. And then if that person, of course, you're not going to finish the conversation in 10 minutes, but you say, hey, can I come have a 15 minutes talk? But then if that person ended up spending 30 minutes or even an hour, that's a good sign. That's basically they're showing, they're not saying I'm committed to a relationship. And then you do the second time after a month, after 2, you regularly ping these people who are willing to extend this 10 to 15 minutes to a 30 to 60 minute people. Then basically these are the people that using their posture, they're showing they're willing to have a committed relationship to you. But the key is you never call them mentor. You just so this is just secretly established as a mentorship. So that's what I heard. Like, I think that's really working.
That's a good trick. So I hear you. Relation, like Carl, what you say, relationship, the trust, and someone's
Carl,
willing
can I
to
have a
put
10
the
minutes
time.
with you?
That's a good trick. I'll try that.
He's done that to me many times, Lou.
I was asking for coffee. Then there's a lot of questions actually I prepared. So wow, thanks so much. I learned a lot today. From this 1 hour and 10 minutes, we kind of 10 minutes exceeded our time, and there's still questions coming in. Unfortunately, we don't have enough time to capture all these questions. But we're happy to take the questions off to the next. In the next Venture Voices. We are always having one every month. So we are into the second edition, and moving forward, thank you so much, Lou and Carl, for the time today. It's wonderful. All your sharing. I personally, I gathered a lot today, and I look at the questions. I believe the audience have also learned quite a fair bit. Looking forward for Venture Voices, we welcome even topics, from the audience today. You can scan if you have any topics in mind that you feel that you want to hear from our experts, like Carl, Lou, and many others. Just feel that we have a Google Sheet here. Just ping some of the questions there, topics that you'd like us to discuss in the next session. We will make time, and address all those. It is our duty as a community to help one another. And the next slide. And we are always besides having a lot of activities, training programs, Venture Voices, podcasts, etc., etc. So follow us on LinkedIn, all these social media here, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, and we will see articles from us. You'll be in our mailing list, for our events. Sometimes we do have events face to face, and you see us in live. Not just webinars. So join us in our community and hear from us. Any good ideas, ping us. Bad ideas, also ping us. We welcome all ideas. We're all entrepreneurs here, and aspiring ones. So without further ado, I'm going to close this second session of the Venture Voices today. And thank you so much for being a great audience. Thanks again, Lou, Carl. Thank you so much for your time. Really appreciate it. All right, and
Thank you, everyone.
That's it.
Thank you.
Goodbye, guys. Cool. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.